Right, so last time we were discussing about the anatomy of the middle ear. In previous section we have already discussed the basic introduction to the middle ear and exact location of middle ear, important relationships, structures, important structure in the medial wall, posterior wall, masthead system and lateral wall, right? So today we'll start discussing about the important features present in the interior wall of the middle ear, floor and then roof. So let me make middle ear here. As I told you last time that we can imagine it is something like a cube, right, laterally compressed. Let's suppose this is, now you will tell me what is this wall. Yes, can you recognize this wall? Yeah, this is medial wall. And which wall is this one? Posterior. Very good, this is posterior wall. The medial wall main features were promontory, oval window in which what fits?
Foot plate of stapes.
Yeah, your foot fits here.
The foot plate of stapes.
Okay, foot plate of stapes fits here. I thought you were saying about your foot. Okay, so foot plate of stapes fits, and there is secondary tympanic membrane here, and in this facial canal, this is actually an eminence produced by the facial canal which is within the medial wall. Facial nerve is passing, and then facial canal in the posterior wall turns downward, and here there was an opening to the masthead ear system. What is this opening called?
Auditus.
Auditus to antrum. Very good. And here, yes, there was pyramidal eminence, and in which there was a muscle. What was the name of that muscle?
Stapedius.
Stapedius. Excellent. So these were the major features. There were fossa incudus here, right? And posterior canaliculus here, from where chorda tympani will enter into where? Into tympanic cavity, right? And here lies the, yes, what is it? Floor of the middle ear, right? And now I will draw here interior wall. Let's suppose I will draw interior wall a little bit partially, right? This is the interior wall, right? This is interior wall, this is, right? And here there is, what should be here? Tympanic membrane, and that should be called which wall?
Lateral wall.
Yes, lateral wall. This is the lateral wall, right? Now, we are going in detail of interior wall, right? Again, medial wall we had promontory, oval window, round window, and what is this? Facial canal. And if you remember, there was another bulge here that was related with what? Lateral semicircular canal, right? And posterior wall was having facial canal going downward, pyramidal eminence, so conical eminence for stapedius, auditus to antrum, fossa incudus, and posterior canaliculus for the entry of chorda tympani in the tympanic cavity. And now we come and discuss in detail the interior wall, right? I will draw it here. Let's suppose before I really go into detail of interior wall, I would like to put it into proper perspective. Right, here is the middle ear cavity. Again, this is medial wall, and I will draw here the interior wall in this way. I have moved it in that direction. Here is the floor, and as you know, what was here? Posterior wall, but I have moved it from here to forward to show the structures. Right, and of course, what will be here? Yes, lateral wall. Very good. This will be lateral wall. Interior wall has been moved forward to see the structures. Just to put the landmark, I will just draw and you tell it loudly. It should be not oval. Yes. Oval window, round window, facial canal, lateral semicircular, auditus to antrum, and posterior canaliculus, right? Now we go into detail of interior wall. Now if you look at the interior wall, first of all, it has two special projections going anteriorly, right? Let me draw here that now from here there are two structures which are moving forward or anteriorly, right? There are two tubes, and this is opening of the upper tube, upper canal, and this is opening of the lower canal. Upper canal is a bony canal. It is a bony canal, and lower canal on tympanic side, part of it is, I will make it a different color so you can recognize it separately from the upper canal, right? Let me draw it with green color. Now, this canal, the lower canal, this is basically Eustachian tube. This is also called pharyngotympanic tube. It is also called auditory tube, right? Don't confuse this tube with any other external auditory meatus or internal auditory meatus, right? This is a tube which connects the tympanic cavity with the pharynx, right? It has on posterior end, it opens into tympanic cavity or middle ear through its interior wall, and anteriorly it opens into lateral wall of pharynx, right? Now, let me draw the pharynx here. This is your soft palate. Now, first we'll talk about this canal, upper canal. Upper is the bony canal, and it houses a muscle. There's a muscle which lives within it, right? And this muscle which lives inside it, right, it takes origin from the wall, bony canal itself, right? And this muscle also takes origin from the cartilage of Eustachian tube, right? From superior surface. And it also takes origin from the under surface of the skull, from the base of the skull. Let me draw the base of skull here. Now, this is basically Petrous part of temporal bone here, and here is the greater wing of sphenoid bone, right? So it also takes origin from the under surface of, what is this? Greater wing of sphenoid bone, right? So this muscle has how many origins? Three origins. It takes origin from under surface of the base of the skull, or to be very precise, from the under surface of greater wing of sphenoid, and also takes origin from the Eustachian tube, and all these fibers converge, enter into bony canal, and a lot more fibers which are originating from the bony canal and also participating in formation of this muscle. And then this muscle, if you follow this muscle posteriorly, it will eventually convert into a tendon, and that tendon will emerge from this canal into the cavity of middle ear, and this tendon will move around a special type of process, and this process is called cochleariform process, right? Around this cochleariform process, this tendon will then move laterally. Where it will move? It will move laterally, and it will move laterally, and here in the tympanic membrane there should be attached handle of malleus, right? So I will draw the handle of malleus here. Let's suppose here is the handle of malleus, and here's the neck and the head. Actually, this muscle tendon, as it moves laterally, right, it fixates with the handle of the malleus. So whenever this muscle will contract, it will pull the handle of malleus medially, and when it will pull the handle of malleus inward, tympanic membrane will become tense, tympanic membrane will become tense. So thank God they put a very simple name for this muscle. That simple name is tensor tympani. What is the name of this muscle? Tensor tympani. Tensor tympani. Is that right? So what is tensor tympani? It's a muscle which take origin from the bony canal, right, which is opening in the upper part of anterior wall of middle ear, and not only to originate within the bone, but it also originates from under surface of the greater wing of sphenoid and from the gestational tube. And then if you follow this muscle more posteriorly, it converts into a slender tendon which emerges from this hole, right? And this is called canal for tensor tympani. From the whole of the canal for tensor tympani, this tendon will come outside, and from there it will move around the cochleariform process and then acutely turn laterally, and laterally it will come and fuse with the handle of malleus or manubrium of the malleus. Whenever this muscle contracts, it pulls the malleus inward, is that right, and tenses the tympanic membrane. Now, what is the real advantage of this muscle? Actually, when there is loud sound, this muscle will reflexively contract and make the tympanic membrane and ossicular chain. When it will pull the tympanic membrane medially, tympanic membrane will become tense, and excessive vibrations in tympanic membrane will be reduced, right? Number one. Number two, that it will not only pull the malleus inward and pull the tympanic membrane and make it tense, but whole ossicular chain will be also pulled medially, and even foot plate or stapes will be slightly more pushed within the oval window. That all process will reduce its excessive movement of the tympanic membrane and ossicular chain, right? So this muscle is supplied by which nerve? It is supplied by the trigeminal nerve. Which part of trigeminal nerve? Mandibular division. Which part of mandibular division? Of course, motor part of mandibular. Actually, you know, trigeminal nerve has three divisions. There is, what is this? Ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. Mandibular goes down through the foramen ovale, right? Mandibular nerve also has a sensory part, also has a motor root with it. From the motor root, there is a nerve going to the medial pterygoid, which also give a twig to here. If you can't remember much, just remember that this is supplied by, yes, mandibular division of trigeminal nerve. It is supplied by the fifth nerve. Is that right? This is one thing. Now, let's come down. Under it, what is this gestational tube? Now, this gestational tube I will discuss in detail later. Let me tell you some other structures in this wall. There are more openings in this wall. Number one, I must mention, in front of the anterior wall, there is an artery going. Yes, what is this artery? Internal carotid artery. Now, internal carotid artery, around the internal carotid artery, there is sympathetic plexus. Right? Actually, just in front of this wall, there is a canal which is called carotid canal. Because internal carotid artery is just in front of the anterior wall, especially in the lower part of the anterior wall, because internal carotid artery is there and carotid canal is there. That is why this wall is also called carotid canal. Carotid wall. What is it called? Carotid wall, right? This anterior wall or carotid wall. Posterior wall is also called masthead wall. Inferior wall is also called jugular wall. Superior wall is called tegmental wall. Medial wall is called labyrinthine wall. Lateral wall is called membranous or tympanic, more truly membranous wall. Anyway, let me draw this more clearly, that just in front of the anterior wall there is carotid canal, and through the carotid canal there is internal carotid artery which is ascending upward. But actually, from the superior cervical ganglion, internal carotid artery has postganglionic fibers, sympathetic fibers, which are going around this internal carotid artery. Some of these fibers, as one superior bundle and one inferior bundle, these bundles enter into middle ear as superior and inferior branches, and these fibers go towards the promontory, right? These are called cortico-tympanic nerves. From carotid artery to the tympanic cavity, cortico-tympanic nerves. We can say there are superior cortico-tympanic nerves, there are inferior cortico-tympanic nerves, and these nerves, right, they actually exit from the plexus. They come out of the sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery. They make superior and inferior bundle through small canaliculi through the anterior wall. They move backward and then medially enter into tympanic cavity and reach the promontory. And they are going to supply the sympathetic post-ganglionic sympathetic fibers to the what? Tympanic plexus, right? Now, then later on I will tell you that from the floor, what is this? Floor, right? From jugular area, this is, jugular fossa under it. What is this? Jugular fossa. And here is internal bulb of, yes, internal jugular vein, and there are nerves also here. There is 9th, 10th and 11th, right? So from the inferior ganglion of 9th nerve, this is 9th, which is glossopharyngeal, this is 10th, which is vagus, and this is accessory 11th, right? But I will right now focus on 9th nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve, right, from its inferior ganglion gives a small branch but important branch which moves upward, right? When it is moving upward, it passes through a canaliculus, inferior tympanic canaliculus, which is present between the jugular fossa and internal, what is this? Carotid, jugular fossa and carotid canal. In between them there is a bony ridge. Through that ridge, these fibers enter and make a hole in the floor, and through this hole, these fibers move upward and medially, and they bring parasympathetic fibers and sensory fibers to the what? Tympanic plexus. Here we can see there are two inputs to the tympanic membrane. There are sympathetic fibers coming to the tympanic membrane, which are coming from cortico-tympanic nerves through the anterior wall, and there are also parasympathetic fibers with some sensory fiber, right? If you forget sensory, no problem, but you should not forget these are parasympathetic fibers. These are preganglionic parasympathetic fibers derived from inferior olivary nucleus, right? If you go really back here, right, midbrain, pons and medulla. In upper part of medulla or lower part of the pons, there is inferior olivary nucleus, which is a parasympathetic nucleus. From here the fibers are going to the glossopharyngeal nerve, and then eventually they reach to the tympanic plexus. So what we can say, tympanic plexus has sympathetic input and also it has parasympathetic and sensory input. And where these fibers go, we will discuss later. Am I clear? Then, okay, one more thing I will discuss right now rather than later, that fibers from tympanic plexus, right, they supply the, yes, these are fibers which are supplying, these are output. What is this? This is output. This output is going to the tympanic cavity, also to the eustachian tube, also to the mastoid system, and even inner side of the tympanic membrane. Again, let me draw it here. Here the tympanic plexus. Tympanic plexus is a network of the neurons present on the, or nerves present on the promontory, and these nerve fibers even produce shallow grooves on the promontory. Now, this network has input and output. Now, what is the input? The sympathetic fibers coming from corticotympanic nerves from anterior wall, and the parasympathetic and sensory fiber coming from the inferior wall canaliculus, right, through the glossopharyngeal nerve. Now, these are the two inputs. Output, number one. Output fibers from here, from the tympanic plexus, they supply the whole tympanic cavity, and masted air cell system and also to the eustachian tube. But a very important output is, now this is extremely important, a very important output is, yes, this branch. Right. This is from tympanic plexus, this was tympanic network. From tympanic membrane, an extremely important branch is going out. These were coming into the tympanic plexus. These are approaching the tympanic plexus. This is a major output of tympanic plexus, and this nerve pierces a hole in the anterior wall and then obliquely moves medially and upward. It is moving upward and then emerges into where? Into middle cranial fossa. This branch will emerge into middle cranial fossa. It will briefly travel, okay, I will show this. This will briefly travel within the middle cranial fossa, and then through foramen ovale, it will jump downward. I will go into detail of this nerve later, right? I will discuss the whole this nervous part later in detail, but this nerve is, I will just tell the name of this nerve. Yes, what is the name of this nerve, my friend? Pardon? Yes? Greater petrosal nerve. Write it down, greater petrosal nerve, and put a very big cross on it. It is not greater petrosal nerve. Everyone confuses it, I don't know why. And don't tell me now it is lesser petrosal nerve. Now, I'm telling you it is lesser petrosal nerve. Okay? What is this? Lesser petrosal nerve. Greater petrosal nerve take origin from geniculate ganglion of the facial nerve. Geniculate ganglion of the facial nerve is here. Right? Greater petrosal nerve take origin from here and goes into middle cranial fossa. This is lesser petrosal nerve. What I want to hammer in your mind or brain or skull, that greater petrosal nerve is an offshoot from the, what is this? Facial system. This is greater petrosal nerve. Is that right? And from the tympanic membrane, it is the lesser petrosal nerve. And of course, now you should be thinking, where is the deep petrosal nerve? I will explain it later. Right? Yes, please.
Not, sir, not from tympanic membrane.
No, it is coming from tympanic plexus. Yes, very right. It is coming from the tympanic plexus. He is not sleeping, thank God. Okay. So, is it clear? Now, the features of anterior wall, how many we have discussed? Number one, there is opening of the canal for tensor tympani. There is opening for the eustachian tube. Then there are 2 or 3 small openings for cortico-tympanic superior and inferior nerves, along with, of course, internal carotid artery also gives cortico-tympanic branches, blood supply. Then a very important, another neuronal, there is a hole here for another very important nerve, and now let me draw this structure there so it becomes more clear to you. This is the medial wall, right? Here is anterior wall, here is, oh my God, it is going into something nose. What is this? Posterior wall, here is floor, and I have opened the anterior wall here, right? Am I clear? Now, we already know what are the features. Promontory was here, and oval window was there, round window was here, and facial nerve, canal is going over there, lateral semicircular canal is there, and auditus to antrum is there. Right. Here was upper canal. What was that? Canal for tensor tympani. Then there was another canal here. Okay, I will make it blue now. What was this? Eustachian tube opening, right? Then under it there was, yes, superior and inferior cortico-tympanic. Then there was another opening here, right? In anterior wall, almost at lateral edge. I will explain what is that. But already you know, yes, these are sympathetic input. Do you remember? And this was parasympathetic with sensory input. This was the major output going to all areas. And a special output from here was, what was that? Lesser petrosal nerve. And this one going upward like this, lesser petrosal nerve. Just to make it clear, it is different than greater petrosal nerve. Here was a geniculate ganglion. From here the facial nerve was going. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
downward, right? This was ninth nerve, inferior ganglion, right? Facial nerve going down. Now, greater petrosal nerve take origin from geniculate. So this is lesser petrosal, that is greater petrosal. I hope you will not confuse it again, right? Now, what is this hole for? Let's come back. You remember that, what was this nerve going down? Facial nerve, right? And this facial nerve going down, and here it opens, what is this? Stylomastoid foramen. Before it opens, okay, before it exits from the stylomastoid foramen, 6 millimeter approximately proximal to that, it gives a branch, right? Of course, this is also bony part. This is all bone, right? This is all bone. Now from the facial nerve, a branch is given, and this branch goes upward, and from here, in the posterior posterolateral corner of tympanic cavity, there is a hole here. Through this hole, this branch will enter into middle ear cavity. This branch is called chorda tympani. So what is chorda tympani? Chorda tympani is a branch of facial nerve, right? And this, actually it's given off as a last branch in the petrous bone. And it exits from, it moves upward, and then from the posterior canaliculus and posterolateral area of the tympanic cavity, this jumps into what? Chorda tympani jumps into middle ear cavity. Later on I will tell you exact relationship with the malleus, and from here it will keep on moving upward and forward, and then it will exit from a canaliculus from interior wall, right? And this is chorda tympani, which is passing through middle ear cavity. So it has a posterior canaliculus, it has interior canaliculus, but it is not exactly a canaliculus. It is actually a petrotympanic fissure. What is it? Petrotympanic fissure. Petrous part of temporal bone and tympanic part of temporal bone, they meet with each other, produce a fissure through which it emerges out. Petrotympanic fissure. Here I would love to mention that petrotympanic